for our Big History exhibition, we decided to do the intro video.
We went around and asked people different questions to find some different perspectives on big history.
And these are their responses.
So the questions we have, number one would be, what is collective learning? That they will be answering. We also ask some pretty deep ones, like what is our role on this planet? And has big history helped us merge science and spirituality? Has big history taught us anything? What is the great lesson? Has big history affected our view of humanity at all? And how do our relationships change over time? And how will the next threshold look with the human race?
What is collective learning and how does it impact our species?
So, because human beings have the faculties of language, and written language and spoken language, we can take our ideas and collect them over time, and we can collect observations that we made over time, and each subsequent generation is operating with more knowledge than the previous generation, and that improves our quality of life and understanding of reality.
Collective learning is the sharing of ideas amongst our species of Homo sapiens, and what that has allowed us to do is essentially advance from tribal people who have no interconnectedness. Collective learning is what has engendered every scientific advancement since really the dawn of our species. It's what allowed us to fly, it's what allowed us to go to the moon, it's what allowed us to farm, and it's truly been the greatest thing that humans have ever done.
Collective learning is the concept that humans can learn in a collective. So like in classrooms and things, you see all students being taught by one person. That is an example of collective learning. We're currently one of the few species that have the ability of collective learning, and because of collective learning we can pass down information on a more massive scale and from generation to generation, and I think that's why we're so technologically advanced.
Collective learning in my mind would be the overall learning of our species as one. People kind of define our world nowadays as races. You have multiple continents, each apparently has their own race. In reality, we're all one species, but I guess people define these people by their learning ability, in which then that is not collective learning. Should we have had proper collective learning as an entire planet, I believe we would all have each other on, I guess, the same level, as you would call it. Collective learning is highly important in the overall benefit of group learning and helps forward us in scientific learning as general. Collective learning has allowed for multiple famous individuals to gather their resources along with the resources of others, be able to compare them with each other, and then move on as they are able to see what matches up and what does not within their own research.
I'd probably say that collective learning in general is just whenever humans get together and share the knowledge that they've, accumulated over a massive amount of years, and then we find a way to document that and hoard it, and basically make it easier for the next generation, and eventually making it to the point where everybody's pretty much useless because they rely on the earlier findings of their ancestors.
I think we learn better in a group because we feel like we can fit in more and we can work together, which in turn gets better productivity for all of us.
So what is the great lesson that big history has to teach us?
Just how we came here and how we're part of the bigger picture. I think a good way to look at that is that we're all stardust. We're all part of the bigger universe as a whole.
But in my personal experience, big history has impacted me very little because of the fact that my prior experiences and knowledge on some topics has led me to go down a path of Taoist beliefs and things like that, and I try to look into some of the philosophical worldviews that earlier people have come up with. One of the main things that I like to think about is how big history shows us our history of everything that's gone on in the universe, right? Well, if you consider yourself a part of the universe, then you are big history, and you get to, write the next line of the story. So that's probably why it's important.
I think that what you can observe in big history are that there are a lot of trends in human behavior and sociology and social psychology, and that can help us develop an awareness of some of the pitfalls of humanity, and it can also help us observe some of our better angels and decide, you know, what are the natural inclinations of human nature, what do we want to keep, what should we try to perfect and keep doing, and what is it that we want to avoid and get rid of.
What is our role on the planet?
In my personal belief, I believe it is simply to just move forward within life. We've tried for many years to define what our purpose is, especially via our scientific innovations. The cosmology we've been able to study, astronomy we've been able to unlock, but we have not ever yet found a simple answer to what our purpose is. I believe we are just here to move forward and exist as one on this planet.
I think that's really subjective to each person, really. If you have like a passion you want to do, then I feel like you should do it. But I don't think we have a purpose on this planet yet, or that we've found.
Our role on the planet is just like any other species. If you look at it biologically and scientifically, it's kind of just to expand our species, but also to kind of protect the Earth and to try to keep it in balance with itself so it doesn't collapse on itself and become unbalanced.
I think everyone has a different role. Like, it depends on what your talents and things are. So, like, some people's role is to like help save the environment, but some people's isn't. So everybody has a different role.
I don't think that there is one objective notion of what our role is, but I think that every human being ought to try to maximize their experience in a way that doesn't inhibit the collective, and at the same time they have a responsibility to the collective to elevate themselves and our communities and our species.
Our role on this planet, I think, in my personal opinion, that's kind of undefined, and I think that there's there's like some moral guidelines that you might follow as a human being, but everybody's got an individualized purpose, and you can't really put somebody in a box where you say like the whole human race has to do one certain thing. So I think our goal maybe as a species is to, you know, coexist and live happily. I think or you know, do whatever suits you, whatever you find meaning in.
How has big history helped you merge science and spirituality?
It has really kind of justified my spirituality, because the more I think about the universe and how complex it is, the more I think about how there must be a creator of it.
I've come to the realization that with big history comes the creation stories, which spirituality plays a big part in, whether or not you believe in Christianity or any religions, or the Big Bang Theory, which is a big one of, you know, the creation of the universe.
I'd say that for me, they're one and the same. So I went into it with that mentality. So I don't know if it's helped me do that. I hope it helps other people do that. But that's been my belief all along, is the fact that you know, science and spirituality are kind of two sides of the same coin, or like brothers, you know, they should be holding hands, but I think a lot of people separate those, and it's not necessarily for the benefit of mankind.
It has definitely opened my mind up to a lot more things than I had previously thought before. The fact of big history is just that you simply don't know as much as you think you do. And when you learn these new things that you had never seen before, it allows you to compare even more new and recent information that have been proven over a vast amount of years. Compare that with your old information and renew your understanding of the universe as one.
Big history has sort of opened the door to allow me to look at different lenses and understand the world through these lenses. Because big history it's not like, you know, generally when you look at history, you're looking at something specific. Like For example, there are many different topics underlying history, like military history or something like that. But big history kind of steps back from that specific lens and comes and looks at the whole big picture and how everything fits together. It's a broad understanding of history as a whole, and that is the most important thing the big history can be, because it allows you to understand how the world is connected and the universe is connected, and how everything in the world and the universe, they all interact with each other in some way or another, is the way I see it. And so understanding this larger lens has allowed me to sort of gain that spiritual essence, so to speak.
How has big history affected your view of humanity?
I feel like we need to realize that we're all the same when it gets down to it, that we all came from the same thing, and we're all human.
It's made me think of us more as part of the universe because, like I said, we're all stardust, in the sense that the molecules and things that make us up were all created in stars originally. So I think it just gives me a larger sense of the universe and our place in it.
Humanity, well, I don't know, it's kind of made me actually not really care specifically about humanity, because it widens my perspective to such a point that it just makes the world seem a lot bigger than ourselves. And that it has decreased my sort of connection with humanity, but it has also made me care more specifically about humanity. I'm not sure how exactly that works, but it's kind of like this duality, these two opposing sides, a paradox of the more that you can look with a wider lens at the world and at humanity, the more you'll care about it. But you'll also be more disconnected from it.
It's kind of tipped it both ways on my scale. Big history has made it to the point where sometimes I look on humanity and I'm just kind of embarrassed by what we've done to our planet, to our own people. But it also makes me feel proud of us as well, because we've come very far from where we were. We've been able to rectify what we have made wrong, and we're slowly getting there, but we're getting there to the point where we're beginning to identify and respect the properties of our planet in order to protect it as one.
How do you think our relationships with each other will change as we enter Threshold 9, the future?
I think the digital world will definitely advance way more, and relationships, they can be formed a lot quicker, it's a lot differently because there's less face-to-face contact.
I think our relationships are going to matter a lot because we're going to have to communicate. That's one of our biggest things. So if we want to change the future, we're going to have to communicate about it.
Communication will become a large part of our new world, and that hopefully we'll have world peace or something close to it. Either that or complete destruction of the planet.
I hope with this information that we all came from something larger than ourselves will make us more accepting of each other and kind of break down nationalistic ideals that we're all different people when really we are humanity instead of defined by race or nationality or something like that.
When I look at history, I'm a pretty speculative person, but I also like hard evidence and facts. So I have no idea what could come. But what seems to be happening now is humans are sort of engaging in some really interesting frontiers in society and in anything, really. If you look, we're on the brink of some really interesting things going to happen. If you look at technology, it is accelerating rapidly. Thought is being, I don't know what the future may hold, but I certainly hope it's good.
I think we'll thrive. And I think that no matter which way we go or what adversities we face, I think that humans are still going to end up coming out of the ashes on top, and the planet, no matter how much we affect it, will eventually restore itself. And I think that eventually we'll come to a state of peace, and at that point once we're done completely conquering and developing Earth and we've satisfied ourselves, I think that we'll reach a higher plane of existence where we can start to explore and develop other places, not just Earth. I think that once we're done screwing around with ourselves and messing with the planet, we'll realize that that's, below us, and that we'll go on to explore the heavens.